Hey, this is Bob Forrest from The Bicycle Thief, and you're listening to Five Notes with Wendell Correa. Viva Brazil!
Fala galera, beleza? Eu sou o Wendell Correa e hoje eu trago pra vocês a primeira entrevista exclusiva do 5 Notas. O 5 Notas, pra você que não sabe, é um canal sobre música, já tem vários vídeos aí sobre o mundo da música. Se inscreve no canal se você gosta de saber curiosidades, informações e tudo mais. E seguir também no podcast lá no Spotify. Bom, a primeira entrevista não podia ser melhor, é um cara que eu sempre quis trocar uma ideia e foi além das minhas expectativas, que é o Bob Forrest. Se você já leu a autobiografia do Anthony Kiedis, Carticho, ele fala bastante do Bob Forrest, ele é muito amigo, um dos melhores amigos dos Chili Peppers, do Anthony e do Flea, e ele tem uma banda chamada The Bicycle Thief, que tem o Josh Klinghoffer, sim, o Josh Klinghoffer, que foi guitarrista do Red Hot Chili Peppers até há pouco tempo. Eles tiveram essa banda que lançou o primeiro álbum, o You Come and Go Like a Pop Song, em 1999, e esse álbum será relançado, vai sair em vinil pela primeira vez, no dia 21 de setembro de 2020, a data em que o álbum completa 21 anos do lançamento, e a primeira vez em vinil, muito legal isso aí. Vinil todo especial, bem preparado, fica bem legal, se você gosta da banda, vale a pena você ir atrás. E também é uma das primeiras bandas, um dos primeiros trabalhos musicais do Josh Klinghoffer. Dando spoiler na entrevista, foi nessa banda que ele conheceu o John Frusciante. O Bob Forrest vai falar sobre isso e também muito mais coisas, muito mais dessa relação do John Frusciante com o Josh Klinghoffer. Pra quem não sabe, eles fizeram muitas músicas juntos, né? Principalmente na carreira solo do John. Um substituiu o outro no Red Hot Chili Peppers. E o Bob Forrest também morou no Brasil. Ele morou no Rio de Janeiro, então ele falou muito sobre o Brasil. Ele tem muito carinho pelo país. Falou muito mesmo. Bem legal essa relação dele com o Brasil. Pra quem não sabe, também, além de músico, ele trabalha em clínicas de reabilitação, né? Pra ajudar ele que sofreu um pouco com isso também. E agora ajuda quem precisa. Ele também deu muitas opiniões sobre o que ele acha em redes sociais. Bem legal, muito legal as opiniões dele também. Faz a gente refletir. Ainda do John Frusciante, ele contou como foi a audição pro John Frusciante entrar no Thelonious Monster pouco antes ali do John entrar de vez no Red Hot Chili Peppers. Sensacional essa história, ele contou com detalhes. E claro, ele falou muito sobre a história do Bicycle Thief, muitas curiosidades, o nome da banda, o filme que originou, né, esse nome da banda, as novidades que vêm, os próximos trabalhos, né, o que os fãs podem esperar do The Bicycle Thief. Ele falou aqui nessa entrevista de quase uma hora, foi praticamente um bate-papo, né? Eu troquei uma ideia ali com o Bob Forrest, muito simpático, muito gente boa. Vale a pena você conferir. Eu curti muito fazendo essa entrevista, me diverti. Muito legal, espero que vocês curtam também essa entrevista. E ela tá traduzida em português, legendada no youtube.com/5notas. E eu também disponibilizei ela em áudio, mas aí somente em inglês, né? Entrevista original em inglês no podcast que tem lá no Spotify e também em outras plataformas de podcast. Procura aí que você vai achar os 5 Notas, tá certo? Não esquece de se inscrever e seguir o podcast lá no Spotify. Então vamos lá curtir essa entrevista sensacional com Bob Forrest da banda The Bicycle Thief. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me? Oh, should I go the other way? Perfect. How are you doing?
Yeah. How are you, Bob? I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. Let me get a place where it can stand up. Is that good? There you go.
Thank you so much for doing this, man. It's the first time you recording for the Brazilian channel?
Yeah. I mean, I lived a few months in Rio, like in 2012, but I never did anything. Just hung out at the beach.
Then did you like Brazil? Did you enjoy?
I love it. I wanted to move there, and then the riots broke out. Remember, what year was that when over the bus fares in Rio, there was riots?
Yeah, we have been a lot of riots here in Brazil since 2013.
Yeah. I was living in Santarém. Where you live?
I'm in São Paulo.
Oh, São Paulo. I've never been there. I hear it's beautiful and great.
Yeah, I think you enjoy it. We have more places to go here in São Paulo. Rio is a beautiful city, but in São Paulo we have more places.
Yeah. And I heard that there's helicopters flying over Sao Paulo because people don't like the traffic. It's crazy.
Yeah, but there is a lot of traffic.
There's a lot of traffic.
Yeah, always. So, Bob, how have you been passing during the quarantine? Are you good? How are you? Are you okay?
Yeah, I mean, my life hasn't changed that much. I live like up in the mountains, and I just have my kids, and I work, 2 days a week. So now I'm just working 2 days a week via Zoom. You know what I mean? It didn't change my life that much.
And you are releasing the vinyl with the Bicycle Thief. I'm really glad you are doing this, because here in Brazil, it's really tough to find stuff from Bicycle Thief here. I'm glad you are releasing this vinyl.
Yeah, no, well, Josh is he loves Brazil. He's been there a lot, right? So the kind of the visibility for Bicycle Thief comes from Josh's love affair with Brazil. He loves it there.
Yeah, man. The first time I hear the Bicycle Thief was 2004. I was 14 years old. And I really enjoy the songs because it's about relationships. And when I was a teenager, I was starting going out with girls, having my girlfriends. And every time I break up, I listen to the Bicycle Thief song because it's really great lyrics about that.
Yeah, there is. Well, I can tell you that doesn't get easier when you're not 14 anymore. Like, relationships are the one final frontier. Like, you can master, you can become pretty masterful at music. You can become pretty masterful at business. You can become pretty masterful at education. But relationships are so fragile and so complex and so interesting. No one's mastered them. No one I know. You know what I mean? Everybody's trying to do the best they can and learn as they go.
I can imagine that. The song Off Street Parking is perfect for him, especially on the final verse where you say, years from now, maybe outside a movie, you'll be with somebody new, I'll be with somebody too, and you just say hello. That is perfect, man. There's the perfect lyric about breaking up.
That happened to me outside a Patti Smith concert. It was the weirdest thing in the world. And my current girlfriend, that was so much a part of the Bicycle Thief then, she knew who this girl was and knew of her. And it was kind of, I had 10-year relationships with both of them, but this was at the intersection of that. And that was a tense 90 seconds, I can tell you. Hi, how you doing? Yeah, we're gonna go.
Always would be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, it is. So, but in one of the relationships is with heroin itself. I mean, heroin became my primary relationship. I mean, I know for non-addicts, it seems like, what is he talking about? Like, I loved heroin. I would die for heroin. I would do anything for heroin. I thought about heroin all the time. And that's kind of like how we are when we're in love. You know what I mean? Yeah. That obsessive, can't get it out of your mind. And so I always try to, parents of heroin addicts, I try to say, it's like their first love. It's like their first crush. It's like this thing that overtakes you. It's so powerful. The feeling of needing somebody's attention, needing some just obsession with it. And I know it's not healthy, but most people do it. So.
Yeah. And you are doing a great work, man, with the people who need your help. I'm a really big fan, not only of your music, but because of that too.
Well, I came to Rio to help a friend of mine and ended up loving it there so much I just stayed there. And then I was going to open up a rehab there, and I had all that. And it was in San Teresa, and it was all kind of set up. We were a couple months away from, and the idea was to bring American kids to a different culture. And hopefully they would have the experience that I had and Josh Klinghoffer had with Brazil. It's just so, I never knew that something could be so beautiful as Brazil. And what I mean by it, in America, we segregate economic brackets, right? So very, very, very little interaction with either wealthy or middle-class people with poverty in America. It's always shunned away. But I saw Brazil as this complex kind of, I don't know, it was just so beautiful how everybody was Brazilian. And the economics, yeah, certainly they're there, and poverty is there, and wealth is there. But there was this other thing, this more important thing, which is we are Brazil, that you don't have in America. You don't have this guy. All I can explain is the favela that's south of Leblon in in Rio. I went there with this friend of mine. I wanted to experience the culture, and we went through there, and it was just so beautiful, and people were so friendly, and it was really not City of God, which is the only interpretation Americans have of Brazil, right? It's just a false representation of Brazil, that movie, right? And there are parts of America you can't walk through, right?
Yeah, here in Brazil, I think we got a lot of passion and we really enjoy to party. And we always try to get happy. Of course, we had sadness here in Brazil, but I think sometimes the poor people are even happier than the rich people here in Brazil.
All right, I didn't want to say it, but you have to say it. They really have warmth and inviting. Like you know how you ride motorcycles all the time, and I would cut through the favela that's in Santarém to get down to the beach. And you just see kids playing baseball in the street and having fun and whatever, that with a smile on their face. It was just a magical thing to experience a different culture like Brazil. You're miles ahead of us in happiness. Maybe not ahead of us economically, but you are miles ahead of us in happiness and sense of community, sense of culture, sense of nationality. There's a pride and an acceptance and just a happiness that Brazil has across. And like I'm saying, I saw it all across Rio, which, you know, Rio's as big as some countries. You know what I mean? You took Rio and Sao Paulo, that's like bigger than most countries in Europe, right?
Yeah, Brazil, it's a big country. It's impossible to know all the country.
Right. And but you really have something, and I wanted to move there, and then the business fell apart because nobody wanted to send their kids, because it was all over the American news that there's these riots, 2 million people rioting in Rio, and it kind of, my ability to move there and have this rehab there kind of fell apart. But I certainly understood people wanting change, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, have these things happening here in Brazil. And Bob, I really miss the bicycle thief on streaming, on Spotify and Deezer and this kind of things. Do you intend to put the bicycle thief on streaming one day?
We're trying, but the problem of it was, you know, the history of the bicycle thief, and Josh and I kind of touch on it in the video we made about it, that when we announced that it was coming out on vinyl, it never has really come out. At first, it was supposed to come out on Golden Voice Records, which Golden Voice is a friend of mine's concert company that does Coachella. And then the first Coachella lost so much money, he couldn't release the record. Then he gave us the record. Then we had it released by this other thing called Artemis. And all they were really concerned with was getting the song Stoned played on American radio. And then when that didn't happen, the record just kind of fell off the face of the earth, right? But it means so much to the people that got a hold of it and heard it. It kind of has a life of its own, right? And that's what Chris and re-releasing it on vinyl is kind of, I think it's really the first time you're going to be able to, you know, take it and go and say, you know, you need to hear this band. It's one of my favorite things from when I was a kid that you can say to your friends, right? Because you can't just say, go to Spotify and check this out, or you can't email a link, see the bicycle thief, because nobody knows who owns it.
That is funny, man. And the bicycle thief, it's you and Josh?
Yeah.
Because the band is both of you.
Yeah, it's me and Josh, and then we found these producers, Mark and Josh. So it gets a little confusing that there's two Joshes, and the four of us made that record. And then it kind of became a band, you know, with a drummer, Kevin Fitzgerald, who wrote one of the great songs on the album called Hurt. It kind of became a band as we were writing the songs, but it really was just the four of us in a room with samplers and drum machines trying to write songs together.
Did you have the song before you met Josh?
All your Brazilian people will love this, because since all the Frusciante Klinghoffer stuff, I had Serial Song that John Frusciante and I had written, the song Serial Song. Because when he got sober, he and I were going to form a band, and then quite quickly he got back in the Chili Peppers. And then I met Josh, who was only 16 at the time. And so then Josh and I wrote like 4 or 5 songs, just acoustic guitars and singing like I was doing with John. And then we met Mark and Josh, and then we started trying to electrify it and, you know, have it be a band sounding music, right? But initially it was just acoustic guitars. That's why. So I think some of the songs are so meaningful, because when you start writing a song with acoustic guitar, it has a certain kind of musicality to it that if you're just banging away on chords, it's you know, with amps and stuff, it's a little different. And so we found a way to bridge to have that acousticy sounding, those 6 songs that I had that were acousticy, and to kind of electrify them rather than write them as electric and then you just keep piling more and more shit on top of it. That's why so many bands are bad. They write songs with 2 guitars, bass, and drums in a room, and then they go record it, and then it doesn't sound like it did in the room, so then they just keep adding more and more and more, right? And you know, there's just more musicality when you start with piano or you start with acoustic guitar. For me, I believe that. I mean, the Beatles wrote with acoustic guitars. Brian Wilson wrote with a piano. Those are the 2 greatest songwriters teams that ever lived. And, you know, though I would say of the electric bands, Led Zeppelin's probably my favorite. I mean, that was written from a point of view of a riff. Down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. Like that has enough to bring in melody and bring in. It's not like 2 guitars playing Ramones. I know Ramones are the heroes of Brazil, but I mean, it's kind of hard to expand on. It's kind of, where do you go? Whereas when you start with acoustic instruments, there's a lot of different ways you can go. And I see that in hip hop and modern pop music, whether Billie Eilish is pop music, I don't know, but there's this idea of starting with very fragile, you know, simple, minimalist things and then just building it up. That's what the Bicycle Thief does, instead of starting on 10 and trying to go to 11. You know what I mean?
Totally agree with you, man.
Give credit, who really invented that is Beck. Beck really invented that. When I've known Beck Hansen since he was 8 years old, and Beck really just went around Hollywood just playing acoustic guitar, and then once he got with the Dust Brothers, the 3 of them made this new music, really, which is this acoustic hip hop, R&B, rock, country rock hybrid, right? And Bicycle Thief was trying to do that, trying to expand acoustic music, not starting from a rock aesthetic and then trying to elevate that.
Yeah, man. Totally agree with you. I believe a good music is good also on the acoustic guitar too, when a great music is. And how did you came up with the name The Bicycle Thief?
Well, it's a movie that I saw. Getting sober, for those of you people that know what it's like. I mean, I was homeless and I was, pretty down and out and pretty desperate. And you live like that for years and years. When you get sober, all you do is feel. You feel everything. And so one night early on, when I was only like 6 months sober, this being summer of '96, I saw that movie. And that movie made me cry, not just because the movie has this sad kind of existential sadness about it, but because I felt the pain of the little boy that's in the movie. I felt like the little boy. I also was old enough to feel like the debased dad who he's crying over. And I get chills still. I mean, I think The Bicycle Thief is one of the most beautiful movies ever made about human relationships and people, right? And it's kind of hard for some people to follow because it's in Italian and it was made in 1940 or something. But if you can sit quietly with that movie and watch what happens between the father and the son, I mean, there's no more profound explanation of the human condition than that. So when we were trying to think of a name of a band and the songs were so sad, I said, you know, there's this movie called The Bicycle Thief. Have you ever seen it? And he goes, I've heard of it. And then he watched it, and he had a different take on it because he was 17 years old, and he saw it as a more optimistic thing than I saw it. Like it's perseverance and tenacity and against all odds type of thing, I think, is how Josh saw it. And I just saw it as this horrible crumbling of this man, this father. Have you ever seen the movie?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should try
I need to watch it.
So it's a story of a man after World War II in Italy, who there's all this, you know, poverty and starvation and no work, and it's his trying to take care of his family, and he has this little boy that's about, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, and he gets a job, but he needs his bicycle to work, right? He needs to go around on his bicycle in Rome, and his bicycle gets stolen, and he becomes obsessed with getting his bicycle back or punishing the people who stole it, and he becomes just obsessed. And I saw it as me becoming obsessed with drugs and other people obsessed with fame or money. It's this all destructive obsession, right? And the little boy is there. His dad is his hero, and he's looking up to him, and he's going along on this journey of trying to find who stole the bike. And in the end, the man becomes worse than the bicycle thief because he's so just perverted by this obsession to find justice or you know, revenge or get his bike back. And inevitably he steals a bike and then gets caught, and the son has to watch him, you know, be beaten and caught stealing a bike, and he just cries and cries and cries, and that's how the movie ends.
And so you already told me all the movie.
Yeah, telling it is not the same as watching it. It's
but I'm gonna
like
watch it.
a James Bond movie. Yeah, it's really profound. So I just felt like if we could make a record that had the emotional impact of The Bicycle Thief, right, it would be pretty exciting. And so it's also like challenging yourself. Like my original band's called Thelonious Monster. It's a tip of the hat to Thelonious Monk. When you're the Red Hot Chili Peppers are King Oliver and his Red Hot Peppers, that's Louis Armstrong's first band. When you're paying homage to the greatest people in history or one of the greatest movies ever made about the human condition, it's a declaration that we're going to be good. We're going to be excellent. We're not trying to just get on MTV. This is fucking real. This is important. This is Leonard Cohen. This is Neil Young. This is setting your sights on the highest kind of artistic, human kind of goals, you know, and you know, what was funny is no one's seen The Bicycle Thief, so they didn't know what we were talking about.
Yeah, man, that's what I most like about our work, man. It's real, you know? Is that because I miss you on the social media, but I understand why you're not there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we got to find a better way of communicating. I just think that the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world have too much power and too much say, and everybody should banish him to another world. I really do. I think here in America, it's just disgusting, social media. It's either selling a false sense of consumerism or hatred. There's really not a lot of good coming out of social media. And so I'm hoping there'll be some entrepreneurial, obviously some Gen Zers or somebody will invent some more altruistic kind of inspirational version of social media instead of this hideous selling things to the highest bidder. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, because most people are susceptible to greed, right? And to consumerism. Takes a lot. I mean, when you were growing up, you probably had some friends you never thought would be greedy motherfuckers that got to have money all the time and all they think about is money and material wealth. it's seductive material wealth, and social media, it just celebrates material wealth far too much for me. And, you know, and meanness, and just, so I left it. You know, and I'm open to communicating to people, just not where just meanness and material wealth is just celebrated like it is. I just think it's disgusting, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
Kardashian, I call it the Kardashian effect. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand how people can sit around and wonder what those idiots are doing. It's really disillusioning about humanity that we raise up these people like Donald Trump, some fake con man, or the Kardashians, like a family of con men. And it's just like, it's just better just, you know, listen to music and play guitar and play with your kids than sort of stuff, right? So somebody will invent something better, a new version of social media. But at first, we're all going to have to make decisions about Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff. Instagram is owned by Facebook. If you're on Instagram, you're paying Mark Zuckerberg. And I refuse to be sold anything by Mark Zuckerberg or give money to Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, that's an interesting point, man. I need to have social media because I work with that, but I totally agree with you.
Oh, I know. I have a rehab, and they tell me you can't have a rehab center unless you're on social media, and I believed it for years. And then I just felt like, well, I don't think anybody's going to rehab because they're following me on Instagram. I don't know that that's true. You know what I mean?
Bob, do you intend to record and write a new album with the Bicycle Thief one day?
Yeah, we're trying to make a record now that COVID thing happened, and Josh is playing in Pearl Jam. I don't know if you know that or not. Yeah, so just when I think, you know, it was a sad day. I remember when, you know, Anthony and Flea called me to tell me what they were going to do, and I was like, part of me was mad, part of me was frustrated, but part of me was happy that maybe the Bicycle Thief could get back together. and then just when we start talking about it and we start writing songs, me and Mark and Josh were starting to write songs, then Klinghoffer gets in Pearl Jam. so maybe someday, but not anytime soon, I don't think. You know, it's funny. Like, the Bicycle Thief is a special thing, so it shouldn't be just to make a record. It's got to be that
thing, right?
Yeah, meaningful. And you know, we wrote some songs. I would say, you know, we wrote a song about my friend Matt Dyke, who's one of the legends of hip hop, and that was when me and Josh got back together and we were writing this song, and it's really beautiful. And so we do have some songs, and I think it's like the beginning of the Bicycle Thief. The first time I had Serial song, I had a song called Max Jill Called, and then Josh and I wrote some songs, and it was over like a 2-year period of time, this accumulation of all these portraits of people and portraits of emotions. And I think we've got that. We've got 3 or 4 really good songs. One song that, you know, it might take 5 years, 10 years to get it out, you know what I mean? But one song for the Bicycle Thief record is called I Remember the 80s. And it's this kind of looking back on my life and how much everything has changed, right? And some for the good, some not for the good. A lot not for the good. You know what I mean? In the 80s, you know, and I know it seems like ancient times for a lot of you young people, but in the 80s, there was only literally about 40 or 50 bands in Los Angeles. Can you imagine? There's probably 10,000 bands in Los Angeles now. I mean, people just didn't aspire to be musicians in the late 70s, early 80s. If you told your parents you were going to be a musician when I was a kid, like in 81, 82, 83, when I started playing music, your parents cried. They were so sad that you were going to throw your life away. Right? It's not like now parents are grooming their kids to be the next Billie Eilish. You know what I mean? It was like, oh my God, we failed as parents. He's going to be in a rock band, right? And so, but what's amazing is if you take that era of music in Los Angeles, like 20 of the bands are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 20 of those bands.
I was gonna ask you about this because about the LA scene nowadays, because I'm from Brazil. I only been in LA last year, but I'm really fan of LA scene. And you see the histories you talk about, Anthony Kiedis talk about. It was Red Hot Chili Peppers, Fishbone, Thelonious Monster, James Addict. Say, oh my God, they are gods rock. What else going on in LA? Yeah. And what is not happening now?
It was a magical time, and we all lived together. We all knew each other. Here's a little known fact. Anthony and Flea and Jack Irons of the Chili Peppers grew up with Saul and Steven Adler in the same neighborhood. Guns N' Roses and the Chili Peppers come from the same neighborhood in Los Angeles, and they're all about the same age. I mean, that's
crazy, man.
Anywhere in the world, Brazil or anywhere. You know what I mean?
In the universe, I believe.
And the greatest story Steven told me. So the Chili Peppers are 1 year older than Saul, his name is, Slash, and Steven. And they used to rehearse. They had this band called Anthem, named after the Rush song album, you know, Anthem, Rush, 2112. Yeah. And so they were playing mostly Rush songs, I'm assuming. And it's Flea, Alan Johannes, and Jack Irons, and Hillel. And they're probably 17. So that means Slash and Steven are 15, right? And Steven remembers Slash and him climbing up on this fence to listen to them rehearse in this garage. I mean, that's Los Angeles.
That's crazy, man.
The mecca of rock and roll of all time, right? Think Los Angeles, in that era, like, here's the bands that you could go see. The Go-Go's, the Germs, Los Lobos, the Blasters, X, the Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction, Guns N' Roses, Poison. I lived across the street from Ricky Rocket, the Poison drummer. Gibby Haynes from the Butthole Surfers was staying with me. And he goes, that's really the guy from Poison lives across the street? And I said, yeah, he lives across the street. And he goes, I got to meet him. And he went and got a cup out of my kitchen and walked across the street, knocked on the door and asked for a cup of sugar so that he could meet the Poison guy, the Butthole Surfers guy. I mean, that was a nutshell. It was just exciting, and everybody liked music and lived for music. And you know, and that era is gone. And that's what this song called I Remember the 80s is about. And the fact is, I don't even live in LA. And that's the chorus says, I don't even live in LA no more. And neither does any of the people who live there, right? In that era. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just, you know, I don't know what Sao Paulo's like, but Los Angeles has become you have to be very wealthy to live there. So struggling bands can't live in LA, right? And if there's not artists and if there's not creative things going on, there's not art openings and poetry readings and bands playing in garages, I just don't have much interest in a section of the world. It was about what Hollywood meant. Everyone lived in Hollywood because you could live there. Me and Flea and Anthony lived in a 1-bedroom apartment for $400 a month. All we had to do is come up with like $140 each to live right on Hollywood Boulevard. Now that apartment's probably $4,000 a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Bob, I've got to ask you this, Brazilian, I think you will be crazy about this question. You were responsible for John Frusciante meeting Josh Klinghoffer?
Yeah. Well, all of it. Well, I mean, I know that Brazil is just, you know, everybody in Brazil loves the Chili Peppers, and I know they're pretty private about things, but I don't mind telling what I experienced, which was Thelonious Monster needed a guitar player because one of our the one musician in Thelonious Monster who wasn't a drug addict decided to quit and go back to college. I can't deal with you guys anymore. So we needed a guitar player. And Flea had told me about this kid that lived in the valley, which, you know, it's like this other side of the hill of Los Angeles. He said this kid was amazing. And but he's only 16. He can't really be in a band. He can't really tour. He still lives at his parents' house, right? And so then when Thelonious Monster needed a guitar player, I was like, well, give me the phone number of that kid. He's gonna be 18 sooner or later, isn't he? And Flea was like, I don't want to give you his phone number. And I, why? And he goes, because I'm waiting until he turns 18. And I said, give me the phone number. He gave me the phone number. John Frusciante came in to audition for Thelonious Monster. He played 2 songs, and me and Rob Graves, the bass player, just looked at each other. And I said, well, if you want to be in the band, you're in the band, right? He was, he's pretty amazing. There's one very complicated Thelonious Monster song. I said to him when I got to the rehearsal, well, what songs do you know? And he said, John Frusciante, 16 years old, said, all of them. And I said, you know all of our songs? By this time, we'd made 3 albums. And he goes, yeah, all of them. And I go, okay. And our hardest song to play is one called Positive Train. Even the guys who wrote it can't play it. It's pretty complicated. So I said, do you know how to play Positive Train? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, let's do Positive Train. And he got it in his pedals, you know how John is, and he's standing there, and he goes, wait. And I said, what? And he goes, which part do you want me to play? The Dick Stenny part or the Chris Hansen part? Like, he knew which guitar player's parts were. And I was like, well, the Chris Hansen part, because that's who he was replacing, right? And he goes, okay. And he played the riff from this song called Positive Train perfectly. Like, even the guy who wrote it, Chris Hansen, can't play it perfectly. It's like a studio overdub that he took 20 times to get it right. And John just played it perfect. So I was just like, whoa. And so we asked him to be in the band. And then I told Flea and Anthony, like, yeah, that kid, it's amazing. He's going to be in Thelonious Monster. And Anthony said, what kid? And I said, the kid that Flea and DH knew about. His name's John. And Anthony was like, why do I not know about this kid? And obviously that led to them playing with John. And then John was at first going to be in both bands until it became a problem. So John was in Thelonious Monster and the Chili Peppers until Mother's Milk got made and was coming out. And then the same thing, like, Josh was 17, we were making the record, and I wanted this like Leonard Skinner-y like guitar solo, and Josh doesn't even know who Leonard Skinner is because he's like 15 years later than John, right? Or 12 years later than John. So I said, well, I'll call Frusciante, he can come down and do it. And Josh is like, okay. And so John came to the Bicycle Thief recording to play the guitar solo on the outro of Serial Song. And that's when they first met. And that was a pretty magical moment when the two of them met. It was pretty magical.
Very magical. Because 2004, there are a lot of great songs with John Frusciante and Josh Klinghoffer together, man. This is beautiful.
Well, the People Collide with Clouds is so great, that album. Yeah. You know that record?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, life has its ups and downs and all arounds, and in the end, music matters, friendship matters, and we all have our ups and downs. But I mean, it's been it's on the Bicycle Thief record, it's worth sticking around just to see what happens. It definitely is worth sticking around just to see what happens. Right?
And how do you feel about this, Josh leaving and John coming back?
I knew it was kind of inevitable. Everybody said it wasn't, but I just thought, we're all friends first and foremost. And a lot of times you butt heads or you don't see things the same way as other people do, and you overreact or go this way or that way. Anthony and I who are probably best friends, I would say, have fought throughout the 40 years we've known each other. But inevitably there's so much love, you got to figure it out. And not everything connects at all the right times at the same times, right? And I just felt like, I understand John's point of view, which is I just care about music. I just want to play music. I don't like thinking about all the other stuff. But when your music is so beautiful, it comes with a responsibility to all that it kind of encompasses, right? And that battle with him or with Josh, that Flea has it also, is just like, it's a very difficult thing. It's very difficult. It would, the way I say it is, if you were the best plumber in the world and people celebrated plumbing, it would be hard to be a plumber. You know what I mean? You know, you start out just a kid loving music and playing it in your bedroom, and then you record it, and then people hear it, and then it becomes mythologized, and then this burden of expectation comes with it, right? And I think John battles with that, and now he's in a better place to kind of deal with it. You know what I mean? That's why I idolize a lot of people. Anthony says I idolize too many people, but I idolize them, but I try not to burden them with my expectations of them, right? Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Leonard Cohen, because how much I love them and their music means to me, I don't want it to harm them, my love of them, right? I don't want them to shun away from public life or going to the supermarket, or I don't want to keep them in a box making music the way I want to hear it. You know, the audience has a responsibility to the musicians that they love. And I think sometimes they forget that, because musicians don't really exist without an audience, and the audience doesn't really exist without the musicians. It's this union of love and joy and appreciation and feeling that happens. But when the audience expects you to give them what you want, what they want, and won't allow you to go this way or that way or take a break, it gets to be a little much.
And
right?
Musicians are also regular people too. I think some people believe they are like icons. They are not even from the earth. They are aliens, the musicians. But musicians are regular people too. They have to go to the bathroom. They have to take shower. They drink. They eat.
Yeah, they poop. Yeah, no, but some of them are very different people. I believe well, David Lynch is a big hero of mine, the filmmaker, right? And he says some people have an antenna that is in touch with the other world, the world of ideas, right? So there's the ideas world. It's a fourth dimensional world. It's a world you can't see or understand, has no language. It's just the world of ideas. And some people have antenna that is constantly in touch with the world of ideas. And it's torturous. He describes it as not a good thing to have the antenna to the other world, right? Because you're getting all messages, and somehow the artist has to figure out how to have a life and be a human being with this stuff coming at them all the time, right? Yeah. And Bob probably the icon of that. And so I got kind of close to him and got to observe him in the 80s. And he does a thing where if something's coming to him, he just gets a piece of paper from anywhere, a hotel stationery, and writes whatever's coming to him. And then he doesn't think about it. He doesn't try to write the song. He doesn't do anything. He takes that piece of paper and he puts it in this briefcase. And he has a briefcase full of those things. Then when he needs to make a record, he takes the briefcase out and he opens it up and he takes all the papers out and then tries to follow whatever that idea or that thought that came to him 2 or 4 or 10 years earlier to come up with the song. I think it's a fantastic way. And I kind of copy that thing. I write a verse and a chorus, I record it on my phone, and then when it kind of goes dead and there's nothing more coming, I just move on to living life, right? And, you know, and that's what writer's block is the fear that your antenna isn't bringing anything in. And the only reason it's not is because there is no deadline or release date for creativity. So an artist gets put in a bad spot, like say, Chance the Rapper or whatever. So he has this big, huge album. And then there's this corporate machinery that says you have to make another one within the next 18 months so we can capitalize on this success of this one. And most artists, you know, play into that, and then they make shitty second records, right? You know what I mean? Whereas someone like Bon Iver is saying like, no, I made that record and I'm gonna make another record when I feel like it. And I don't care what the corporation thinks, right?
Yeah, that's the best way should they do it.
Yeah, but as a fan of a band, you're disappointed.
Yeah, you want more. Give me the music.
Right? When Nirvana did the heart-shaped box record, whatever that was called, and people were like, I don't like it as much, and I go, I think it's better than Nevermind. And they were like, no fucking way. I go, it is. It's more musical. It's more beautiful. The subject matters are more intimate, more personal. It's a better record. What was it called? What was it called? The album after
Nirvana, In Utero.
In Utero. In Utero is a better record than Nevermind. But try to tell Nevermind fanatics that.
And Brazilians are really fun about that because the band just came to Brazil. They already play in a lot of cities here in Brazil, and they just go back to America or England or whatever. And then the fans on the social media come back to Brazil. They've just been in Brazil. Wait for a few years.
I know.
They come back.
You know, like a lot of my friends play Rock in Rio, and everybody loves going and playing the show. It's one of the greatest places to play. Going back to Nirvana, I remember when Nirvana played there. They played Rio by Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
When Nirvana played at Rock in Rio. Anyways, so, you know, Metallica will play, or Chili Peppers will play, or acquaintance of my bands, friends of mine's bands will play. And literally, usually you Brazilians will give them 1 year break. And then on the second year, like, why is Metallica not playing? Like, they just played here in 2018. You want to play 2020 too?
That's exactly like this. So you have a podcast. People can hear you that, right?
Yeah, it's called Don't Die Podcast. And I talk a lot about music on there. And, you know, you can still, you know, it's funny. Like, you can find ways of connecting with people, right? Whether it's through, you know, Josh releases a lot of Plural One videos. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
So I think we're gonna do a live concert of the entire album, probably around the release date. So you'll see me and Josh play the entire album live. And on, I think, September 21st, to be honest with you. So
great news, man.
Yeah, and I hope we don't screw up. We're gonna practice. It's hard to practice with COVID, right?
Yeah, and I know your music, man. This acoustic guitar I have system when I was 12, and I take out the album because when I was started listening to You Come and Go Like a Pop song, I was learning how to play the guitar. And
oh my God!
Yeah.
Right.
Serious song.
What are all the green books up there?
The green books, a lot of books from me and my daddy. We have a lot of music, and we are a big fan of soccer too. Music and soccer, what's moving us here.
Football.
Yeah, we call football, but Americans sometimes doesn't understand soccer.
You're trying to be American.
That's interesting because when I talk to Americans, I say soccer. When I talk to British, I say football.
Yeah. So my son Elvis, who's now going to be 10 in a couple weeks, he kind of was in Brazil a lot when I was doing that rehab there, and he really, because he was like just starting to talk, and he used to watch the children's Brazilian TV show. Remember the two clowns, Paquito or whatever they're called? They're two little clown guys.
Yeah, Patati Patatá.
Yeah. My son still loves that. We have all their toys here, and now his little sister has them. And he spoke Portuguese. He could speak Portuguese when he was like 2.5 years old, from that TV show.
Really, man?
Yeah. What is the name of it again?
Patati and Patatá.
Yeah. Are
They
those
are
guys stolen?
they are huge in Brazil, since the 80s, and then they
They-
became more famous on the last years. They were huge on the 80s, and then again they come back as Klaus again, and they are huge. It's really good. They're famous there too. Your son like it's really funny then.
He was obsessed with them, and we bought all the toys. You know, they got all the Patito toys.
That's funny, man. You need to come to Brazil.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back. We're gonna play there somehow, some way. But in the end, I think I'm gonna end up living there because I loved living there. You know, it's just such a beautiful culture.
I think you really enjoy, man. You have to do some concerts and some gigs here too.
Yeah. Plus the places in San Teresa, I had a one-room apartment that had a swimming pool on like the 5th floor. So it was like you sleep on a bunk above a desk and whatever, and had a beautiful bathroom, but then it had a balcony that had like this little hot tub swimming pool. Like, how much better can life be than being in Brazil, like in a hot tub? I'll be there someday. I never forget like what it was like to live there. It was the greatest.
If there was no violence in Brazil, it would be heaven for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
it's a sad thing.
You need from what I understand, I'm not a big politico, except for here in America. I try to butt out of other people's politics, but you know, a lot of corruption went on in Brazil. A lot of used car salesmen, we call them, politicians.
And it only got worse.
Yeah. Now you got Trump. Now you got Trump Jr., right?
Yeah, man, it's even worse than Trump. I can't believe it. This guy is our president. I don't call him my president. I call him the president of Brazil. I can't say my president. No, it's not my president.
Yeah. That is just crazy times. You know, music is gonna. I always think that music is the communicator and the transformative kind of art form that unites people, right?
Yeah, and always music. Music saved my life so many times. I mean, I'm really grateful for you guys. I'm a big fan of Thelonious Monster. I'm a big fan. You saved my life.
Oh, well, thank you. So I'll be down there. I don't know about Sao Paulo. I get scared of the traffic. I mean, I've heard horror stories. Like, people miss their concerts because of the traffic.
São Paulo, São Paulo, people call us for really worker people. And we really are. We work all the time. It's 24 hours. It's 24/7 here in São Paulo. We never stop work. We're always caring about work. So we not leave the work until the work is done. And then sometimes we miss some things like a concert. And Rio is a beach city, you know, so they get more cool.
Yeah, it has different mountains and whatever, but
I can do it tomorrow, you know. I'm not gonna do it today. I do it tomorrow. I don't care about it.
I was only supposed to be there for 3 weeks. I stayed for 4 months because no one ever made a decision about anything. Like, what are we doing? Well, I don't know. I was gonna go to the beach and I was gonna go. Oh, the Go-Go Bordel. He has a record store there in Ipanema, and I was kind of hanging out with those guys. They don't even know where they're going. They don't know what it is. There is no days in Rio. It's just like the sun came up. Let's go get a smoothie and go to the beach.
Yeah, man. But please come to São Paulo only for one gig, and you know the city.
We will.
Thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate your time in this interview.
Exactly.
And I really enjoyed it, man. Thank you so much. And
Love to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.